Hello, welcome to Andy Tales. After watching the video, make sure there's no one else in the room. Don't forget to write your city and the time in the comments.
The photograph that smiled. I've always been a shutterbug, the kind of person who carries a camera everywhere, capturing moments others might overlook, the way sunlight filters through autumn leaves, the shadow of a bird against a brick wall, the fleeting expressions of strangers in a crowd. Photography has been my refuge since I was a teenager, a way to make sense of the world, to freeze time and hold onto beauty in a life that often felt chaotic. My father gave me my first camera, a beat-up Polaroid he'd found at a garage sale, and I spent hours in our backyard, snapping pictures of flowers, bugs, anything that caught my eye, the instant film spitting out memories I could hold in my hands. Now, in my early 40s, with a modest career as a freelance photographer, I still chase those moments, my collection of vintage cameras lining the shelves of my tiny apartment, their lenses glinting in the morning light. Each one a companion on my endless quest for the perfect shot. Last summer, I decided to explore an abandoned amusement park on the outskirts of town, a place called Joyland that had been shuttered since the 1980s, its rusted gates and crumbling rides a local legend whispered about in hushed tones. I'd heard the stories, disappearances, strange lights at night, voices carried on the wind, but I brushed them off as urban myths, my curiosity outweighing my caution, the promise of haunting photographs too tempting to resist. I arrived at dawn, the sky a pale gray, the air damp with the scent of rust and rotting wood, the park's entrance marked by a faded sign, its cartoon clown face peeling, the painted smile twisted into a grimace that sent a shiver down my spine. I slipped through a gap in the fence, my camera bag heavy on my shoulder, the silence of the park oppressive, broken only by the creak of a rusted Ferris wheel swaying in the breeze, its shadow stretching long across the cracked pavement. The park was a graveyard of forgotten joy, the carousel's horses frozen mid-gallop, their paint chipped, their glass eyes dull, the funhouse mirrors warped and smeared with grime, reflecting distorted fragments of the gray sky. I snapped photos as I wandered, the click of my shutter echoing in the stillness, each frame capturing the decay, the loneliness, the eerie beauty of a place left to rot. I found an old photo booth near the midway, its curtain torn, the seat inside covered in dust, the machine's faded sign reading "Smile for Joy" in chipped red letters. I couldn't resist. I dropped a quarter into the slot, expecting nothing, but the booth hummed to life, the flash blinding me as it snapped 4 quick shots, the machine whirring as it spat out a strip of black and white photos, the paper warm in my hands, the chemical smell sharp in my nose. I looked at the photos, my breath catching. The first 3 showed me sitting in the booth, my expression curious, the background a plain gray, but in the 4th, I wasn't alone. A figure stood behind me, tall and thin, its outline blurred, its face a void except for 2 glowing eyes, white and unblinking, and a smile, wide, unnatural, stretching across the shadow where its mouth should have been, the teeth jagged, dripping with a black ichor that seeped into the photo, staining the paper. The air grew colder, the chemical smell sharpening into something rancid, like rotting flesh, and I heard a whisper, "Smile for me, smile for me, smile for me," soft and guttural, coming from the photo, the words slithering into my ears like a physical touch. The figure's glowing eyes staring at me, unblinking, its smile widening as I watched. I dropped the photos, my hands trembling, the strip fluttering to the ground, but the whisper continued, "Smile for me," and I felt a cold breath on my neck, sharp and icy despite the still air, the sensation sinking into my bones. I turned, expecting to see the figure, but the booth was empty, the curtain swaying slightly as if something had just passed through. I grabbed the photos, shoving them into my bag, and ran, my footsteps echoing on the pavement, the whisper following, "Smile for me," the Ferris wheel creaking louder, the carousel horses seeming to shift, their glass eyes glinting with a light that wasn't there before. I didn't stop until I reached my car, the engine roaring to life as I sped away, the park shrinking in my rearview mirror, but the whisper lingered, "Smile for me." And I saw those glowing eyes in the reflection of the glass, watching me, unblinking. Back home, I locked the photos in a drawer, my hands shaking, the chemical smell clinging to my fingers, the whisper echoing in my ears, smile for me. Even as I turned on every light in my apartment, the bulbs buzzing like a swarm of insects. The next morning, I woke to find the photos on my bedside table, the figure closer now, its claw-like hands pressed against the edge of the frame, the green light of its eyes pulsing like a heartbeat, the black ichor dripping further, staining my sheets. The whisper turned into a chant, smile for me, smile for me, smile for me. And I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the hallway, the floorboards creaking with each step, the air thick with the rancid smell, the temperature dropping until my breath fogged in the dim light. I burned the photos in the sink, the flames roaring as the paper curled, the ichor hissing as it dripped into the fire, the smoke thick and black, carrying the chant, smile for me, into the air. But the next day, they were back, pinned to my wall, the figure standing at the edge of the frame, its claws reaching out, the green light pulsing brighter, the background now a sea of shadows, their shapes tall and thin, their eyes glowing, watching me. I moved out that week, renting a new place in the city, a sterile apartment with no history, but the photos followed, appearing in my camera bag, their chant louder, smile for me. And I saw the figure in every reflection, the lens of my camera, the glass of my windows, its glowing eyes peering from the edges, its presence a weight I can't escape. I went back to Joyland, desperate for answers, but the park was gone, replaced by an empty field, the ground uneven, littered with broken glass and weeds, the air heavy with the smell of decay. I asked a local, an old woman walking her dog, if she knew about the park, but she shook her head, saying, "Ain't been nothing there since the fire in '89. They say the photo booth captured more than pictures. Captured souls, trapped them in the frames. You sure you got the right place?" I nodded, my throat tight, and walked away, the photos waiting for me at home, their chant a constant drone, smile for me. In my ears, I found a single thread online, buried in an obscure forum, about a photo booth that appeared in abandoned places. Its pictures alive, smiling at those who dared to sit, its watchers, tall, thin shadows with glowing eyes, never leaving those who smiled back, their lives haunted by the frame's gaze. I don't take photos anymore, don't even touch my cameras, too afraid of what I might capture in the lens. I keep the photos locked in a safe, buried in a storage unit across town, but I hear that chant, smile for me, faint and distant, on quiet nights when the air feels thick, and I see those glowing eyes in every shadow, every reflection, watching me, their presence a weight I can't escape. I sleep with the lights on, the windows covered, every creak of the building sending my heart racing, and I never smile anymore, terrified that one day, the safe will open itself, and the figure will step out, its chant pulling me into the shadows. The key that unlocked shadows. I've always been a bit of a pack rat, the kind of person who can't throw anything away, hoarding trinkets and mementos from every chapter of my life, each one a tether to a memory I'm afraid to lose. It started when I was a kid, growing up in a small, drafty house on the edge of a coastal town where the salty air rusted everything it touched, and my mother's constant moving meant I clung to anything stable, ticket stubs, seashells. A broken watch my father left behind before he disappeared into the fog one winter morning, never to return. I'd keep them in a cigar box under my bed, running my fingers over their surfaces at night, the textures grounding me against the uncertainty of a life always on the brink of change. Now, in my late 30s, with a steady job as a librarian and a modest cottage in the countryside, I still can't resist collecting, my shelves cluttered with oddities from flea markets and estate sales, old coins, cracked teacups. A brass compass that hasn't pointed north in decades, each one a story waiting to be uncovered. Last spring, I attended an estate sale in a neighboring village, a sprawling manor that had stood empty for years after its last occupant, a reclusive widow named Mrs. Harrow, passed away under circumstances the locals only whispered about. Their voices hushed as they spoke of strange noises, flickering lights, and a figure seen in the windows long after her death. The manor was a Gothic relic, its stone walls draped in ivy, its turrets jagged against the overcast sky, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth, moss, and something faintly metallic like blood long dried. I arrived early, the gravel driveway crunching under my boots, the chill of the morning seeping through my coat as I joined a small crowd of bidders, their faces pale, their eyes darting nervously toward the house as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. Inside, the manor was a maze of dark hallways and creaking staircases, the air thick with the smell of mildew, old wood, and that metallic tang, now sharper, clinging to the back of my throat. The rooms were packed with relics of a bygone era, faded tapestries, tarnished silver candelabras, a grand piano with keys yellowed like old teeth, its strings silent under a layer of dust. I wandered through the crowd, my fingers trailing over the surfaces, the textures familiar yet unsettling, the house's silence oppressive, broken only by the murmur of voices and the occasional creak of the floorboards, each sound amplified in the stillness. I felt a pull toward the upper floors where a narrow staircase led to a locked door at the end of a dimly lit corridor, its wood warped, a rusted padlock hanging loosely as if inviting me to break it open. I glanced around, ensuring no one was watching, and pried the lock with a hairpin I kept in my pocket, the metal snapping with a dull crack that echoed like a gunshot, my heart pounding as I pushed the door open, the hinges groaning in protest. The room was small, its walls lined with shelves of leather-bound books, their spines cracked, the titles faded, the air heavy with the smell of decaying paper, dust, and that metallic tang, now so strong it made my eyes water. A single window, its glass smeared with grime, let in a sliver of gray light, casting long shadows across the floor, the shapes twisting like fingers reaching for me. In the center of the room stood a desk, its surface cluttered with papers, ink bottles, and a brass key, its design intricate, the handle carved with what looked like tiny faces, their expressions frozen in silent screams, their eyes hollowed out by the metalwork. The blade shimmering with a faint green sheen as if polished by unseen hands. A yellowed note beneath it read, "Do not use. It unlocks more than doors." I ignored the warning, drawn to the key's eerie beauty, and slipped it into my pocket, the metal colder than the room's damp air, its weight heavy against my thigh as I left the room, the door creaking shut behind me, the manor's shadows stretching long across the hallway. The air growing colder as I descended the stairs. I brought the key home that evening. The sky outside a heavy gray, the air thick with the scent of rain as I placed it on my kitchen table, the brass reflecting the light of a single bulb overhead, the tiny faces seeming to shift, their screams more pronounced, the green sheen pulsing like a heartbeat. I examined it under a magnifying glass, the carvings more detailed than I'd realized, the faces not just etched but alive with an energy I couldn't place, their hollow eyes staring at me, unblinking, their mouths open in a silent wail. I couldn't find a lock to match it in my cottage, no door, no chest, no drawer, but the key seemed to hum in my hand, a faint vibration that sent a shiver down my spine, the air growing colder, the metallic smell intensifying, mixed with something rancid. Like rotting flesh, the radiator's hum fading under the hum, which grew louder, more insistent, each vibration a pulse that matched my heartbeat. That night, I went to bed with the key on my nightstand, the house quiet save for the patter of rain against the windows, the air thick with the smell of damp earth now mixed with that rancid odor, the key's green sheen glowing faintly in the darkness, casting an eerie light across the room. I drifted to sleep, the hum lulling me into a restless slumber, but I woke to a faint sound, a soft scraping, like metal on wood, coming from the nightstand, the key trembling slightly, as if trying to move. I sat up, my heart pounding, and saw the key turn on its own, the blade pointing toward my bedroom door, the green light pulsing brighter, the faces on the handle glowing, their screams now audible, a whisper that slithered into my ears, "Unlock us, unlock us." Unlock us, soft and guttural, the words of physical touch, the air growing colder, the temperature dropping until my breath fogged in the dim light. I grabbed the key, my hands trembling, the metal icy to the touch, the hum vibrating through my fingers, and I heard a click from the bedroom door, the lock turning on its own, the door creaking open to reveal a hallway that wasn't mine, dark, endless. The walls slick with a black ichor that dripped like tar, the air thick with the smell of decay, the shadows moving, tall and thin, their outlines blurred, their eyes glowing, white and unblinking, staring at me with a malice that turned my blood to ice. The whisper turned into a chant, "Unlock us, unlock us, unlock us," and I felt a cold breath on my neck, sharp and icy despite the closed window, the sensation sinking into my bones, the shadows stepping closer, their claw-like hands reaching out, leaving smears that pulsed green, their mouths opening, voids of jagged shapes dripping with ichor, the chant echoing through the hallway, a sound that clawed at my skull. I slammed the door shut, my hands shaking, the key burning cold in my palm, but the chant persisted, "Unlock us," seeping through the wood, through the walls, through the air itself, and I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, pacing the hallway. The floorboards creaking with each step, the air thick with the rancid smell, the shadows pooling under the door, their glowing eyes peering through the gap, watching me, unblinking. I threw the key into a drawer, locking it with a spare padlock, the metal rattling as I slammed it shut, but the chant continued, "Unlock us," and I saw the shadows in every reflection, the glass of the windows, the mirror in the bathroom. Their glowing eyes peering from the edges, their presence a weight I can't escape. The next morning, I woke to find the key on my nightstand again, the padlock broken, the drawer open, the green light pulsing brighter, the faces on the handle screaming louder, the chant echoing, "Unlock us," and I heard the footsteps again, closer now. The shadows pooling in the corners of the room, their shapes tall and thin, their eyes glowing, watching me. I drove to a nearby forest, the key heavy in my pocket, and buried it under a tree, the earth cold and damp, the chant fading, "Unlock us," as I covered it with dirt, the forest silent save for the rustle of leaves, the air heavy with the smell of pine and decay. But the next day, the key was back, sitting on my kitchen table, the brass polished. The green light pulsing like a heartbeat, the faces screaming, the chant louder, "Unlock us," and I heard the footsteps at night, closer now, the shadows pooling in every corner, their glowing eyes watching from every reflection, the glass of my phone screen. The windows of my car, their presence a weight I can't escape. I moved out that week, renting a new place in the city, a sterile apartment with no history, but the key followed, appearing on the counter, its chant louder, "Unlock us," and I saw the shadows in every shadow, every reflection, their glowing eyes peering from the edges, their claw-like hands reaching out, leaving smears that pulsed green. I went back to the manor, desperate for answers, but the house was gone, replaced by an empty field, the ground uneven, littered with broken glass and weeds, the air heavy with the smell of decay. I asked a local, an old man walking his dog, if he knew about the manor, but he shook his head, saying, "Ain't been nothing there since Mrs. Harrow died in '72. They say she made a key that unlocked more than doors, unlocked shadows, trapped M in the metal. You sure you got the right place?" I nodded, my throat tight, and walked away, the key waiting for me at home, its chant a constant drone, "Unlock us," in my ears. I found a single thread online, buried in an obscure forum, about a key that appeared at estate sales, its blade alive, whispering to those who held it, its watchers tall, thin shadows with glowing eyes, never leaving those who unlock too much, their lives haunted by the key's hum. I don't collect trinkets anymore, don't even visit flea markets or estate sales, too afraid of what I might find hidden among the relics. I keep the key locked in a safe, buried in a storage unit across town, but I hear that chant, "Unlock us," faint and distant on quiet nights when the air feels thick, and I see those glowing eyes in every shadow, every reflection, watching me. Their presence a weight I can't escape. I sleep with the lights on, the windows covered, every creak of the building sending my heart racing, and I never touch keys anymore, terrified that one day the safe will open itself and the shadows will step out, their chant pulling me into the darkness. The doll that watched me sleep. I've always had a soft spot for old toys, a nostalgia that started in my childhood, playing with hand-me-down dolls and tin soldiers in my grandmother's attic. Their worn surfaces a comfort against the chaos of a home where my parents' arguments echoed through thin walls. I'd lose myself in imaginary worlds, the toys my companions, their painted faces a silent reassurance that I wasn't alone. As an adult, I turned that love into a hobby, collecting vintage toys from garage sales and online auctions, my small apartment filled with shelves of porcelain dolls, wooden trains, and wind-up clowns. Their faded colors and chipped paint a testament to the hands that once held them. Each one had a story, a piece of someone's past I could feel in the cracks, and I cherished them, even the ones that others might find unsettling, their glass eyes staring blankly into the distance. Last autumn, I found a new addition on a bidding site, a porcelain doll listed as antique Victorian child, rare, its photos showing a delicate figure in a tattered lace dress, its face pale, its cheeks painted with a faint blush, its eyes a deep blue. So lifelike they seemed to follow me through the screen. The listing was vague, the seller anonymous, mentioning only that it had been in their family for generations, an heirloom they were eager to part with, the starting bid suspiciously low. I won it for a steal, the package arriving a week later, wrapped in brown paper, the air heavy with the scent of dust and lavender. As I opened it, the doll's weight heavier than I expected, its porcelain cold to the touch, the lace dress brittle under my fingers. The blue eyes glinting in the dim light of my living room, their gaze sharp, almost knowing. I set the doll on a shelf above my bed, her dress smoothed out, her face tilted slightly, the blue eyes catching the moonlight as I turned off the lamp that night, the room plunging into darkness, the air thick with the smell of lavender, now mixed with something sharper. Like damp earth or decay. I drifted to sleep, the house quiet save for the hum of the radiator, but I woke in the early hours to a faint sound, a soft giggle, high-pitched and childlike, coming from above me, the shelf creaking as if something had shifted. I sat up, my heart pounding, and saw the doll's head turn toward me, her blue eyes glowing faintly, a pale white light that pulsed like a heartbeat, her painted lips curled into a smile that wasn't there before, wide and unnatural, revealing tiny, jagged teeth that glistened with a black ichor dripping onto the shelf, the giggle echoing, "Watch you sleep, watch you sleep, watch you sleep," soft and sing-song, the words slithering into my ears like a physical touch. I scrambled out of bed, my hands trembling as I turned on the lamp, the light harsh against the darkness, but the doll's head was back in place, her smile gone, her eyes dull, the shelf clean of any ichor, the giggle silenced. I told myself it was a dream, a trick of the mind brought on by the late hour, but the air remained cold, the lavender smell sharpening into something rancid, and I felt a cold breath on my neck, sharp and icy despite the closed window. The sensation sinking into my bones. I moved the doll to the closet, locking the door, the key heavy in my hand, but as I returned to bed, I heard the giggle again, "Watch you sleep," faint but persistent, coming from the closet, the door rattling slightly as if something were pushing against it. The air thick with the rancid smell, the temperature dropping until my breath fogged in the dim light. The next morning, I woke to find the doll back on the shelf, her head tilted toward me, her glowing eyes fixed on me, the smile wider now, the black ichor dripping onto my pillow, staining the fabric with shadows that writhed like living things. The giggle turned into a chant, "Watch you sleep, watch you sleep, watch you sleep," and I heard footsteps, small and deliberate, pattering across the floor, the air heavy with the smell of decay, the radiator's hum fading under the sound. Each step a thud that vibrated through the walls. I grabbed the doll, my hands shaking, and threw her into a box, sealing it with tape, the giggle muffled but persistent, "Watch you sleep," as I drove to a nearby lake, the water dark and still under the gray sky, and threw the box in, watching it sink, the chant fading, "Watch you sleep," carried away by the ripples. But the next day, the doll was back, sitting on my bed, her lace dress pristine, her head tilted, her glowing eyes watching me, the smile stretching wider, the ichor dripping onto my sheets, the chant louder, "Watch you sleep," and I saw her in every reflection. The glass of the windows, the mirror in the bathroom, her glowing eyes peering from the edges, her presence a weight I can't escape. I moved out that week, renting a new place in the city, a sterile apartment with no history, but the doll followed, appearing on the counter, her chant louder, "Watch you sleep," and I heard her footsteps at night, closer now, the giggle echoing through the walls, the air thick with the smell of decay, the temperature dropping until my breath fogged in the dim light. I went back to the seller's profile, desperate for answers, but the account was gone, the listing erased, as if it had never existed. I asked a local antique dealer, an old woman with hands gnarled from years of handling relics, if she knew about the doll, and she nodded grimly, saying they made dolls like that in the 1800s for mourning families to hold the spirits of lost children. Some say the spirits never left, watching those who take them, waiting for a new home. You sure you got the right doll? I nodded, my throat tight, and walked away, the doll waiting for me at home, her chant a constant drone, watch you sleep, in my ears. I found a single thread online, buried in an obscure forum about a doll that appeared in auctions, its eyes alive, giggling at those who kept it near, its watchers small, shadowed figures with glowing eyes, never leaving those who slept too close, their lives haunted by the doll's gaze. I don't collect toys anymore, don't even visit garage sales or online auctions, too afraid of what I might find hidden among the relics. I keep the doll locked in a safe, buried in a storage unit across town, but I hear the chant, watch you sleep, faint and distant on quiet nights when the air feels thick, and I see those glowing eyes in every shadow, every reflection, watching me. Their presence a weight I can't escape. I sleep with the lights on, the windows covered, every creak of the building sending my heart racing, and I never sleep deeply anymore, terrified that one day the safe will open itself and the doll will be there, her chant pulling me into the darkness.